This is Speaking of Writers. I'm Steve Richards. The book is Hero. The author is Danielle Bouthillier. This science fiction drama and action novel with a hint of romance is an unconventional and unique superhero story. Throughout the tale, the characterization is strong, memorable, and nuanced, suited to the intricate, powerful, and compelling narrative. This work is an immersive and gripping piece that will resonate deeply with the reader, and the assured writing style and the way that the story builds and sustains tension throughout ensures that it will keep readers engaged and entertained. Happy to have Danielle Bouthillier join me now here on Speaking of Writers. Danielle, welcome to this program.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start with the book's plot. If you could summarize it.
What I tell people is that the book is regarding a washed-up superhero that tells their life to the son of a supervillain. Many years ago, the son of the supervillain is saved by this mysterious stranger. Years later, he stumbles upon the superhero living on the streets and wallowing in self-pity. He invites the superhero into his office where she tells him her life story, which is he realizes that in the moments of stress, usually she's the one that saves others, but she's the one that needs real protection and saving.
Danielle, the character of Johnny, how did you create Johnny?
I had old story. I had a toy. It was a stuffed animal, and went to Build-A-Bear and got him a surgical outfit, and named him Dr. Johnny. So I really loved the name Johnny. For the character themselves, I just wanted like a person who was very compassionate and would listen with an open heart and say, what's troubling you, what's worrying you, and what can I do to help? So he sort of plays the role as the audience as well, because while the superheroes revealing their life story, the audience and Johnny is learning everything about her and what she really needs and what help she desires and things like that.
The title of the book, Hero, what does it mean, and how did you come up with that title?
Well, first of all, I was this book took about 10 years to make and revisions and edit. So during that time, I was unable to come up with a cool superhero name. Most of them seemed to be already taken or already copyrighted. Hero was actually a placeholder name until I could come up with a more satisfying superhero title, but it just stayed in there and it stuck in there. Actually, Hero has three definitions. First is a person who has done a brave act. It could also be referring to it's short for superhero. It can be the protagonist of a fictional story who is trying to overcome some adversary or some either internal or external threat. And then the third, which is a little bit off, it's Greek or Roman mythology for humans with superhuman powers. I pretty much just stuck with it. It's like, well, the definition works. The title character fits all those categories. So I just left the name as is.
Are there any hidden meanings or symbolism in your work that readers might not immediately notice, and not to give away too much?
I can give out a few. There's a blanket and a guitar, and for the main character, it's love and comfort. A lion is mentioned several times, represents bravery and courage. There's one chapter where it mentions wolves, and that's dangerous or danger. There's a hidden message of older daughter syndrome, and what that is for an older daughter of usually neglectful parents, they step in as the second or third parent and raise the siblings. The third, which is sort of related, is the mental health of first responders. And sometimes real heroes need help and support.
Can you share a behind the scenes anecdote or interesting fact about the creation of the book?
I have a few here that's sort of interesting. One, it was originally supposed to be a short story. So about 3 years later, it ended up being a novel of over 100,000 words. And then it was actually an adult book as well. So I was able to change it into a young adult novel, trim it down to 75,000 words. As mentioned previously, it took about 10 years to create and make, just got published recently. And the main character was originally going to be male, but it was later changed to female to add more drama and emotion to the story.
What was the feeling like when you got it published?
At the time, I think I was more, I wasn't surprised it got published, but there was like joy and happiness, I suppose, because this was one of my lifelong goals was to publish a book.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them the dream finally came true. So I was happy and satisfied about that.
Danielle Bouthillier is my guest. Hero is her book. So, what was the original inspiration for that short story that turned into a novel?
I'll have to go way back when, it'd be about 2011. And I was in university at the time. I had a graphic artist tablet that broke. So normally I do digital art. And I had a lemon of a laptop that wouldn't do much except for it had the basics: Microsoft Word, Microsoft PowerPoint. I dabbled with short stories and writing down short stories. So a couple months later, I came back from university. I was watching cartoons, and it was a Superman cartoon from the 60s. And I had a family member come into the room, and she accused Superman of being evil and possessed. It was shocking. It sort of shocked me, like, how can someone say such negative things about one of the best superheroes in the world? Because it was a cartoon, but he just saved the city. At the same time, it didn't surprise me because this family member is very bitter and angry, and it was something that she would say. So several questions came to mind. First was, instead of watching a cartoon, if I was watching the news, I was at school all day, came home, learned that Superman saved the whole city, would she still say those mean and nasty things about him? If he was real and saved her life, would she again say those mean and nasty things about him? And then several other questions came to mind. And one of them was, what if Superman, pretty much he was adopted by a very loving family, but let's say he came from the heavens and he was adopted by my grandparents. How would they react once they learned that he had superpowers? It would be very, very negative. At the time, I was taking child psychology courses as well, and learned that a lot of events that happen in childhood affect people when they become adults. So that's where the short story came from.
We're chatting with Danielle Bouthillier. Her new book is Hero. How did you become a writer, and when did you first realize you wanted to be a writer?
It was back when I was in grade 6. We had a writing competition, actually. It was a little bit odd. It was a publication company in Europe, and they were collecting short stories and drawings for a children's book to commemorate the 90th anniversary of the Titanic disaster. So the whole entire class had to write either a short story, a poem, or drawing and submit it to Europe for this publication company. And I submitted actually a drawing and a short story. Rumor had it that I was the only child in North America who got anything published in that book. So it clearly surprised the instructor as well, because I thought I wasn't very strong in English. But yeah, they accepted the short story. It was published. This was way before Amazon, so my parents had to phone the company in Europe to get a copy for everyone here and my grandparents. So after that, I was like, well, this is neat. I would really like to do a novel maybe in the future. It was always in the back of my mind, but it wasn't until university where I actually got into writing.
What's been the feedback from readers about Hero?
The publication company themselves, the editor, said the novel reads like a movie script. Some chapters are quite the page turner, and you can't put it down. Actually, that was on the online book club as well. Could not put it down. Wanted to know what happens next. Ended up reading into the night. There was another online review. It stated, I was expecting a stereotypical superhero story where the bad guy is trying to take over the world and the superhero has to use their powers to save Earth. But she stated that she found a much more deeper and compelling story. I have a coworker who actually has a grandniece, quite the bookworm. She's in about grade 6, but she reads at like a grade 8, 9 level. And it's hard to find books that she likes that are age appropriate. And I actually gave her a copy to give to her niece, and the niece absolutely adored it. And especially she loved the main character and was able to connect to the main character. I have a coworker who actually speaks 4 languages. The fourth one is English, and I gave her a copy. And her feedback was, she said, this is very easy to read because English is not her first language, and she was concerned that she would not be able to understand what was happening. But she says, I fully understand who the characters are, what are they doing, and what's the setting, and what's the plot. So that was very nice. I have one on a comment on Barnes and Noble. It sort of surprised me. It said some points seem very poetic. I don't see myself as a poet, but maybe there's a few scenes I can recall where it seems very, very poetic at times.
This book, Hero, available at writersrepublic.com, barnesandnoble.com, also Amazon. Okay, the big question, Danielle, will there be a follow-up novel to this story?
Technically, there is no sequel to this novel. However, I would like to publish the original adult version. It has extra villains, an alternative ending, and an alternative prologue. Possibility would be make the novel into a comic book series. Or again, it reads like a movie script, so a film adaptation would also be nice.
And again, the ideal reader for this right now is young adult, right? This version.
Correct. It would be anyone over the age of 12, readers even over the age of 20 who enjoy superheroes and science fiction genre. It can be both male and female readers.
The book is Hero. The author is Danielle Bouthillier, and it's available at writersrepublic.com, barnesandnoble.com, and Amazon too. Danielle, thank you for joining me.
No, thank you for having me today.
And this is the Speaking of Writers podcast.